The Sony a7S III is a solid camera. It's very powerful and a top contender in 2020 and beyond. And when you dig deep, this is more than a small upgrade. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Simon. Welcome to The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one so you don't miss any news. And all the links to everything I talk about in this video, including the gear discussed, are placed in the description down below, along with the current contest details for this Canon 50mm f1.8 lens. Now I'm sorry, I don't have much to contribute to the Sony a7S III discussion. Pretty much everything I discussed last night has been validated by Sony's a7S III livestream product announcement, so I'm not going to go into it and rehash it when you can just go ahead and watch Sony's own announcement right here. However, there are a few notes that I want to cover. The Sony German press statement did indicate that the a7S III could overheat in 4K 60 after an hour. However, Sony stated that the a7S III can record over an hour in 4K 60 before the battery dies. They didn't mention any overheating, and Gerald Undone said that he shot with the camera all day and he never once got any warning. Now this is the same Gerald that ripped Canon for overheating in the R5 and the R6. And Gerald's not partial to Sony. He's been shooting with the Canon C300 for a while, but he is awestruck by the a7S III. Previous rumors had stated that the a7S III can record up to 600 and 500 megabits per second. Now I stated that this is not enough, and this would mean that we would have long GOP needed in 4K. You see, 4K needs at least 960 megabits per second in all-I, and in Sony's live stream, they stated that the a7S III is capable of up to 1200 megabits per second in 4K 20. They further stated that all-I is available in all video modes as well, and I think this is the real power of the a7S III. You can shoot as long as you need in any video mode, get high detail, and not have to worry about recording limits or overheating. That alone is enough for some ordinary filmmakers to fall in love with this camera. Great low light performance, good solid photo modes, 10-bit 422 in all video modes, and a redesigned menu system that was long overdue. For the ordinary filmmaker, this camera requires careful consideration if you love to shoot video. The biggest issue for many will be the price or the cost of switching platforms. The only problem I had, and it's a very minor one, is that there's really no better way to say this, there's no front recording light. I don't know why this isn't a thing. Why don't camera makers get this? Why don't they add this? I guess if you don't have recording limits, it's not a big deal. Canon, are you listening? Remove recording limits, please. As I said earlier, I'm not going to rehash what other YouTube presenters have done. I'm just wasting your time. Be sure to watch Sony's live stream presentation. Take a look at Chris and Jordan over at DP Review. They give a really good high-level overview for the ordinary filmmaker and photographer. But if you need to dig deep, and I mean really deep, finish off by watching Gerald Undone's video. He digs deep, very deep into the details of things like dynamic range like no one else can. I've got nothing further to add. I'm happy to say that Sony has released a solid camera to the market. But what do you think? Are you going to go with the R5 or the R6? Is this a major update over the a7S II? Does this camera go beyond your expectations? Either way, this ordinary filmmaker says, well done, Sony. The a7S III is a solid camera, very powerful, and a top contender in 2020 and beyond. 12.1 megapixels is not a limitation. It's part of the reason for this camera's power. In this segment of Behind the Scenes, I want to tell you what it's like when you're expecting a major announcement and all the effort that goes into it. For me, as a channel that focuses on news and rumors along with reviews, it's quite often the lead up to the actual announcement where things are the most busy. Yesterday, I put out how many videos? 4, 5? I've lost count. But things are rapidly changing in the days up to an announcement, and that's where things are crazy, crazy busy. Now, once we get the actual announcement, quite often, it's a bit of a ho-hum event. Most of the rumored specifications turned out to be true in this case, with some minor changes as, of course, I announced. So what do I do? What's my angle? I know that people like DP Review have had the camera, are going to try it out, and if I was you, that's what I would be watching first, other than the live stream event. Then I'd go look at people like Gerald Undone that dig really deep into this camera. So I'm thinking, what is my angle? And that's part of what I did all morning. I watched various presenters, I watch the live stream event, and I'm thinking, what do I have to contribute here? And so what I ended up focusing on is, let's give it a quick high-level overview. Let's talk about what was the delta. What is the difference between what we expected in the camera and what is noteworthy, what changed? So for example, 1200 megabits per second is really big. All I and all video modes, no overheating, no record limits. Now, I still would like to see some more extensive tests on this because that German press release had some language in there that I would like to verify a little further, but it certainly sounds like the A7S III is, in terms of overheating, it performs much better than the R5. And in terms of, not overheating, record limits, it doesn't have record limits. Now, Canon can easily go ahead and say, okay, you know what, here's a firmware update, and gone are the record limits. And really, it should be gone. Canon, remove the record limits. Anybody else who's got record limits, take them out. They get in the way of that customer experience. They get in the way of our workflow and our results, and they're really, really annoying. So please, if you're putting record limits in cameras, get rid of them. Also, things such as not having a record light on the front of the camera, that's really huge too. I'd really love to be able to have that, or some way of indicating yet the camera is recording. Because like I said with the R5 the other day, when it stopped recording, I had no idea. But Simon, it has a flip screen, you can flip it around. Well, yes you can, but then you're looking at the flip screen all the time, and you can train yourself not to, but it's the shiniest object, you're going to look at it at some point. And in this case here, where I have a teleprompter in front of me, there's no way that flip screen is going to be visible unless I can extend it a good 6 inches to 8 inches away from the camera. So not very useful in that regard. I do love the flippy screen, but I love it from the point of view of the person in front of the camera shooting with the camera. When I'm in interview mode and I'm the subject of the interview, I don't really have much use for that flip screen. But I think the Sony camera is really good. I didn't want to go into a lot of detail, and it's the same thing with the R5. Once the R5 was released, there really wasn't much for me to discuss because, once again, I didn't have a camera and a bunch of other people did. And what made the R5 announcement a little more interesting is, of course, the conversation around overheating. And that conversation is still there. The discussion about, excuse me, discussion about the R6 overheating is ongoing, and hopefully by the time that camera is released, they will resolve that. And here's my thought on this. When it comes to the R6 overheating, I'm not Gerald, so I don't have the level of knowledge he has, but I look at the R5 and the R6, they get the same size body, same size processor, same type of processor and sensor, so what is different? Well, the R6 doesn't do all it does is IPB, and IPB does require extra processing. So every 2 out of 3 frames, it has to do processing to create those frames. And just the same reason why it takes a little bit more effort for your computer to decode or to read an IPB stream. So I'm wondering if that might be the little difference. I'm not sure. So if they go ahead and give us all I in the R6, will that resolve that problem? I don't know, but 4K 30 in 2020 shouldn't have any overheating or record limits, and good job to Sony for recognizing that. So that's really all I want to say today. I know that Canon just made their announcement for their financials for the second quarter of 2020, and not surprisingly, they're not good. I think they're down something like 80% to 70% earnings and profit. But Canon should certainly get a boost out of the R5 and the R6, and I also expect Sony to get a boost out of the A7S III. Sony hasn't announced their financials, but I'll do a separate video on financials, maybe later today or tomorrow. I need to dig a little deeper into this stuff first. It's not something I like to rush out the door. But thank you so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. The contest details for the EF 50mm lens is up in a few days. If you'd like a chance to win, subscribe to my channel. That's it. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.